kind of goes back to what Stan Lee wanted for Spider-Man, which is he's the everyman. By making him like this teenager with all these gadgets that goes to these cool parties and things like that and all that kind of jazz, and like not really seeing him as the nerd he was prior to getting the powers, it kind of tarnishes Spider-Man a bit for me. Like,
I'd say you do see him.
You see him bumble about.
I see him kind of. He does. It is to the detriment of Peter Parker, I would say. He has to leave that party. He fails the.
Like, there's those
he's not there
moments.
for the what's the
Liz.
tournament thing called that the
the
nerd competition.
the nerd thing. That, and he doesn't. He has to leave prom.
Yeah, that's a scene that I often like skip, but I do love that moment where he's like looking down at the pool and he's like, oh, that could be me, but I don't get to do that.
He's always letting down the girl as well. That he likes.
And like that's a trope that they do well, but again, it just doesn't feel to have as much weight as the others do. Like, and I think it's the other one is the big one for me is the monument in Washington, where it's like he puts his friends in harm's way essentially, and like he kind of like it's
Why
not
does that break again.
Because Ned's got the
thing. But it's like it's that whole thing of like if that was like a Spider-Man comic or like another film, he would have been like, I should have never given that to you. That's like on me. Like I've revealed my identity to you. Like you're wrapped up in my life now. And it's like, especially by the end of that film where Aunt May knows that he's Spider-Man, which I imagine obviously will be discussed a lot more in Far From Home, but it just kind of feels like a lot of that is kind of not trying to hurt other people around him, while because Tony Stark introduces him as Peter Parker and knows who his secret identity is, I think it almost gives the MCU this free reign of going, it's fine if people know who Spider-Man is, but that's a really core part of Spider-Man is that no one knows it's him.
That whole thing where he reveals himself in Civil War, I want to say.
In Civil War,
like that was like a massive moment to it.
That's like there's a great comic panel from that, which is like as he reveals his identity, like J. Jonah Jameson is like at the TV waiting to like scold the hell out of the person who it is, and he just falls off his chair because it's Peter Parker. Like it's things like that where it's like when that reveal happens, it's such a huge impact, and it's like same as like Spider-Man 2, which is the bit where he's being carried over the subway by all these New Yorkers who have this like a lot of respect for him. I know that's earned and things, but it's because Spider-Man is essentially Captain America in like his moral code and things like that. And it's that great moment that I do love in Civil War where it's like it's almost like that you've got that small town New York suburban mentality where he's like, you've got Hart Kid, like, where you from? And he says like Queens, and he's like, oh nice one, I'm from Brooklyn. Do you know what I mean? It's like it kind of solidifies those characters of where they come from. But yeah, Homecoming kind of misses the mark for me a little bit in that respect. And like I say, there's all those moments towards the end that do it really well, but like again, like I've got a bit of a gripe with Peter Parker never being the unlikable nerd. It's kind of like where he comes from. It's kind of what grounds him a little bit. It's what makes him the everyman. But like
I feel like culture's changed a little bit though now. I don't feel like nerds get that kind of same level of being a weird outsider as much as they used to.
Thanks to the MCU, largely.
No, thanks to Big Bang Theory.
Autism.
It's a whole different episode.
Big Bang Theories. Let's laugh at people with autism.
No, like it's fair enough, but like I don't know. It's just that thing where it's like Liz never really kind of like doesn't notice him. Like from very early on, she's like, "Oh, that's Peter. Like he's quite noticeable."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Well, I think part
Tom
of it
Holland's
is like,
a good-looking dude.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, he's
great.
There's not a
sexy boss.
No, but it's like I think for me a Spider-Man film is like, and again like. I'm torn because I very much appreciate and respect the decision not to do another origin film, but then I do feel like
it's missing.
Like, do you know what I mean? Because it's that thing of like, he doesn't have to be a nerd, but it's that thing of it kind of goes back to what he says about.
I still think they do the being nerdy thing better than Andrew Garfield, clearly being like 28, skateboarding, cool hair, dating like a hot girl.
Amazing Spider-Man 1 has one of my favourite choreographed scenes in any superhero film where he's like being a bumbling idiot like in the hallway. Does anyone remember that? Like he's trying to like steal something by accident, he kind of bumbles and he accidentally webs like a cart over and then he kind of like accidentally trips someone up, and it's really well kind of pieced together. But...
Is it as good as Tobey Maguire catching everything on a tray?
That's really impressive.
Really good. But again,
is it as good as Tobey Maguire walking down the street flicking his fringe around?
Nothing is as good. Also, what I love about that scene is like he goes from people going, "Oh, he's attractive," to "He's a fucking slime mad" in like 2 seconds.
Finger gunning women as he walks down the street.
He licks a woman and she's like, "Oh yeah, I like that." He's confident, and then he starts going like, "Watch out!" You know what I mean? And it's like people are just like, "Oh, slimy."
Nah, it's a bit much.
Yeah, it's like tone it down. But yeah, no, I think that's like my main gripe with it. And again, like I think it's got some great redeeming features, and I remember kind of going, I hope the next one really kind of learns that mistake. But from the trailers of Far From Home, I'm worried they're leaning into what they thought made Homecoming good, which is a lot more of that.
Yeah.
While I'm like, I feel like you could move away from it. Like one of my notes is for the future of Spider-Man, how I think it would help improve is move away from the leaning of the MCU. Like the reason why Sony has managed to create so many films and obviously spin-off films and things like that is Spider-Man in himself has got, because the thing is, remember, you've got Iron Man was not a household name, wasn't very popular, had very limited villains, you know, and then the Avengers themselves have like their staple villains, but no one really knew the Avengers. Spider-Man had to always rely on his own rogues gallery. Similar to Batman, he's got like, you know, you don't really see the Joker.
I think he is
Mr.
the Batman
Freeze.
in terms of villains. Spider-Man is arguably
he's got this
his
rich...
rogues gallery is the best probably the MCU.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like to kind of, I really hope they lean, and actually the Far From Home trailer kind of bringing in Mysterio and what looks like maybe Hydro Man and maybe an interpretation of Sandman, kind of looks like you throw in a lot of these like maybe villains in to kind of show how big his rogues gallery is. But I do hope they move away from, like I'm hoping Nick Fury in this is not as big a player as Tony Stark was in Homecoming. I hope he's kind of a means to an end, and it's a bit of a tie-in to kind of like go, all right, yeah,
it is still connected.
It's like, but I hope that in future, because it kind of feels like he's not a hero in his own right, and Spider-Man is like he earns his place. Like I remember in one of my favourite things as just a comic book nerd is that in the future of Marvel Comics, above the Avengers, above everyone else, Spider-Man to like the public is known as the greatest hero to have ever lived. Like in the far future, like people remember Spider-Man as the greatest one of them all, and like Captain America admires him. Like everyone admires like this. It's kind of this moxie this kid has. Do you know what I mean? Who's like you know, just can put up through so much shit. And I think Captain America has kind of always been that, but like I think Spider-Man should be that too. And it's like I kind of
maybe he will now going forward.
I'm hoping so.
It feels like they've got long-term plans for him.
Yeah, I kind of feel. I don't really disagree with anything you say. I just don't think it bothers me as much as it bothers you. But I kind of feel almost was the point of him not getting given the suit and then having it taken off him that point, though, that he was given all this stuff. He was just gifted all this stuff, and that Tony Stark was just going, "Here you go, kid. You're a cool hero. Have all this stuff," and then he was nothing. He was like made a mess with it, and then
If you're nothing
and then at the end, and then obviously you say in the third act when it starts doing that stuff. But I kind of took that as the point that it was like, "Here you go, kid. Have all this cool stuff," and then it was like it didn't really work for him, and then it was like at the end he was like, "Do you know what? I'm not the suit. I am Peter Parker. I am Spider-Man. Spider-Man's like the maybe it needed more of it.
I think he needed more of it because I think I'm not saying that that's lost. I just mean that it
could be more.
It could be more.
Yeah.
And I think it's not fleshed out as much. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think like having the AI as well. Really.
Yeah, I don't particularly like that.
Yeah, like that scene where he's like kind of mulling around in the shield base or whatever it is.
I think that's quite funny, but with the AI, it's not right.
It feels more Iron Man.
Yeah, it does, and it's like Spider-Man shouldn't have an AI. Like that's one thing he deals with is there's a lot of weight on his own shoulders. Well, if he's always got this voice in his ear he can vent to, then he is Iron Man because it's like, you know, he can quip with someone, he can talk to someone. It's like Spider-Man's in his own head a lot.
Again, they might have that taken away now.
Well, it looks like he's going to have more suits in Far From Home.
I'm hoping that that's an overcompensation deliberately. So I'm hoping that because he has this what looks like a stealth suit, and he has like maybe he gets to keep the iron armor maybe or whatever, or you know he's got this new red and blue suit, red and black I should say. I'm hoping kind of by the end of that film maybe he kind of comes to a realization. He's like, this is too much. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me with me spider senses, me strength, me webs. I'm going to make everything myself.
I hope he says it like that.
I'm going to have me webs. I'm going to have me strength.
And Nick Fury's just like, why are you talking like that?
But I think that's kind of what I'm hopeful for. Kind of like Far From Home kind of goes, all right, take all his suits away because of a decision he's made. He's like, he's right, going, and you know what? It's poignant based on the impact Tony Stark's had on the rest of the MCU and how I imagine he'll have an impact on Peter Parker's story going forward. Yeah, he'll be like, you know what? He's right. Without the suits, it kind of feels like I'm losing a lot of what makes me a hero, and maybe it's that kind of thing of going, I'm going to start from basics and just make my own thing. So.